Hi, ladies and gents. Today I have Robyn Keyser, founder of the Artclub and Friends. Artclub and Friends is an independent brand by artists for artists. So Robyn and her team are artists who work together to make clothes for other artists. They are here for the dreamers, creators, and innovators. But just beyond that, beyond just making beautiful clothes to inspire other artists, they exist to reconnect other artists to the profound way of making clothes. Welcome, Robyn. How are you today?
Thank you. It's so good to be here. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I've had better days. It's just been crazy busy on my side. Awesome. We're here today just to interview you regarding the Art Club and Friends. For somebody who doesn't know what Art Club and Friends stands for, how would you explain it?
So I think like first and foremostly, what we make is clothing. We are a clothing brand primarily. But I guess for someone who hasn't heard of us before, a big part of our why and why we exist is we love creating pieces for artists, musicians, creatives, innovators, change makers, people who have a unique sense of style and sense of self. And we definitely approach our design more with the consideration of all the people that are involved, as well as the people who wear our product in mind, as opposed to designing from a place that's driven by trends or aesthetics. It's definitely more about our community in terms of, all of our manufacturers, our suppliers, our collaborators, as well as our extended community of customers. And we're a non-gendered brand, so we don't separate anything we make into menswear and women's wear, and everything we make is made locally here, predominantly in Cape Town and a little bit in Johannesburg.
Awesome. So I think my next question to you would be: is it just limited to other artists, or if I'm really interested in the brand, how can I get my hands on it?
Of course, anyone can purchase from us. We do have an online store as well as a store here in Cape Town, and we're stocking a store called the Egg. We Are Egg, which is also opening in Johannesburg later on in the year. Their second store. No, we're not exclusively for artists, and to be honest, I think the definition for me is more around people who understand kind of like the purpose around why we do what we do and how we do it, and they're more interested in the story, and that's something we're always very honest and transparent about, is how things are made and where they're made. Our customer base ranges from 1 years old up to it. We have customers in their 70s. We have very eccentric customers. We have super stylish customers. We have very like formal dressing customers. So I think we're incredibly lucky in that the community that's rallied behind our brand is quite hard to actually pinpoint or to put into a box. I don't like putting anyone or anything into boxes. So that's something I think that's also important at our club. And therefore, yes, anyone can buy from us.
Given the wide range, it seems like you must be having a massive team behind you. So how did the concept come about, or how did you found the Art Club and Friends?
So I first just want to say there's myself and two other colleagues here permanently, and then we've got one full-time team member at our store and then a part-time team member. So we're really small.
Okay.
I think because we've grown quite quickly from the outside, people think there's like a massive team behind what we do. But we work a lot with other creatives, other companies. So we collaborate and work together with a lot of people. So our core team's actually really small. So in terms of your question was what was the idea behind the brand?
Yes.
So I think I started Artclub and Friends when I was 22. Straight out of varsity, I'd been working in the industry for about a year, and I couldn't really find a place that I felt I was going to be able to merge my kind of like creative interests as well as my like morals and ethics and hopes, I guess, for how I could exist in the industry and what we could do to change it. Because let's be honest, the fashion industry has some big problems. And I think, you know, a lot of entrepreneurs, when they start their business, they have these well thought out, developed concepts and business ideas that they've tested. And I was so young and had such little knowledge. A lot of how Artclub started was just kind of like a feeling. I knew that I wanted a way to be able to challenge myself and try many creative sort of mediums and pursue different parts of the industry. And it's very hard to do that within a corporate structure. So really, I started with a very, very, very big feeling, but small idea. And it's kind of developed and grown every single year. The more we learn about what we do and how we do it, as well as getting to know our customers better, I think our dream has become clearer and more defined every year, and it changes.
Awesome. I think you've sort of married your passion with business, so you'd never run out of fuel to overcome even the most challenging times. So, what would you say those have been since the inception of our club?
So, I mean, they come and go. There've been many, but I think the first one that I can identify that was really challenging was just the first, I would say, 2 to 3 years. Um, I started with very little understanding of what it takes to actually fund a business. So I was constantly and still run into cash flow problems. I had very little understanding of how to plan, how much things were going to cost, how to acquire some cash flow if I needed that. And for the first 2 years, I was working part time before I could actually take on Artclub full time, because I just didn't really know how to, even though product was selling and people were so supportive about the brand, I couldn't really get the mechanics of it right. So I would say those first 2 years were really difficult because it was slow and steady, and there wasn't like the sense of overnight success at all, which I've seen in other companies. And there's always a part of you as a younger person that worries that you don't have what it takes, you don't have the information, you don't have the resources, maybe you don't have the support, and to just keep going for those first 2 years was really hard. I was doing it alone. I didn't have a team or a business partner, buddy to like amp me up and get me through those tough years. So that was really hard. And then kind of within like a year or year and a half after having hired my first employee, who is still sitting opposite me today, who's also my best friend, we grew quite quickly then. And then within probably, I would say, a year and a half of that, we went into a pandemic. So it was kind of like a really slow start. And as we started getting momentum, we had saved enough money. We were about to open our first store in Johannesburg. We put down our deposits, got our shop fittings ready, built up our stock levels, and then went into a lockdown. So that was extremely hard for anyone existing on the planet in that time, let alone a self-funded, super small clothing brand. Like it was, I can't speak enough to how overwhelming that period was, because again, just the like underpreparedness of what happened was a lot to survive. But in the same light, I think we were small enough to be quite resilient. We didn't have crazy overheads. We didn't have a massive team. So in some aspects, we were quite lucky that that happened before we were kind of like up and running business where we are today. And it forced us to really think about what we wanted to do, because things got really hard really fast. And we had to think on our feet. We had to be resourceful and scrappy and just kind of make the best of what we had. We've moved our entire business into our garage, and we're fulfilling orders and packing them through the depths of lockdown. And yeah, we survived. I'll never speak about that period as if it was easy or that we thrived. It was fully survival mode. But it does also put you in a space where you go, oh, okay, this is how bad things can be. And suddenly now this year, whenever difficult periods come up, we kind of like, well, we got through 2 years of a pandemic and lockdown and basically our business functioning at like 15% capacity. We honestly feel like we can pretty much do anything, not anything, but you kind of mentally have survived such a difficult time that now there's a lot more gratitude around when things go right, and when things go wrong, you just kind of approach them calmly with the mindset of just trying to figure out the best way forward as opposed to like panic.
And I guess there's no shying away from actually having skin in the game, hey? How would you advise somebody that is relatively new to the entrepreneurship world, more especially in the world of fashion? That is, where you were in the midst of, challenges, to just, continue and, there's definitely light at the end of the tunnel. How would you motivate someone like that?
So I think the one thing that I've learned that I think is quite important is that at the beginning of like starting a company, especially if you're someone like myself who really is like has not a lot of training or practice as an entrepreneur, the best thing you can do is have a very clear idea of why you're doing what you're doing. There's so much happening in the world right now with social media and the internet. We're also bombarded with brands and clothing and ideas that you really need to have. I think you really need to have a good story or core purpose or reason as to why you're doing what you're doing, and to be able to communicate that to the right people and people who will see value in that. I think once you've got those fundamentals right, everything else becomes easy. But if you're not selling the right thing or providing the right service to the right people and they don't see value in it, it doesn't matter how great you are at what you do or think what you're doing is so great. It doesn't matter if you have a great product, service, ops, all of that is secondary to the idea and the why of what you're doing. So I often meet people who are really frustrated in the beginning of their journey, and they're not willing to kind of like listen to why what they're doing is not working. And the way you do that is you talk to people, you put your product or your service out there, and you let go of your ego, and you just have a really open mind to hear how it makes people feel, if there's any value in it that they see. And people are amazing. They'll tell you immediately how they feel about things. And that's how I think for us, I started working in a market here in Cape Town. I used to sell there every single Saturday for about 2 or 3 years before I even got an assistant to help us there. And I spent every weekend chatting to customers, and I literally heard face to face their feedback, what they loved, what they hated, what they wish we did more of, less of, and also just about how our brand was perceived and how it made people feel. That was incredibly helpful information. It took me years to kind of like process it, but to this day, those conversations guide the decisions we make as a team. We'll often go, oh, but you know how people feel about this thing, and this is the thing that people loved. And it means that we're making decisions based off of information that we know is true, as opposed to like guesswork, or what we think is right. So yeah, I think the most important advice, or at least the lessons I've learned, would be to be very clear on your why and your purpose, and to always be open to learning. Because as soon as you get to a point where you think that like your idea is perfect and there's no flaws and there's no room for improvement, you stop growing, right? So yeah, I think that would be my 2 key takeaways up till now.
Awesome. And, it's nice to hear that, you started selling at the market to, getting to where your store is now. What has been the, key elements, even tools that have helped you ramp up from where you were to where you are currently?
I think something we're pretty grateful for is that, I mean, to have started a business in the era that we're in, there's a lot of tools and resources that you can get access to as a small business that maybe a few years ago you wouldn't have had. And a big part of that is technology. One of our partners from the jump was actually Yoco, and being able to set up a card machine within a couple of days as a small business without having to pay like big setup fees or contracts or any of the things, little things like that. Some of the technology we use to do our production planning, that's been huge. And I think we can't compete with massive companies, but it just means that it's not this huge roadblock to get through, that you can at least just get going. So I would say technology is a big thing, and also, yeah, community and mentors, like becoming really good about asking for help and approaching people who you see and love and appreciate, whether it's in your industry or people you'd like to work with, learning to say, hey, you're my hero, how did you do that, and then becoming that person for other people that are on their journey, and just always being open to share knowledge and allow people to give you a leg up, but then also to pay it forward to the next person coming along.
And that's awesome that you do mention that. And I think my last question was obviously going to be around that, to say, how do you encourage others, or how do people reach out to you if they would want advice on anything?
So honestly, we get messages daily on Instagram, and that's another cool thing about technology, is you can reach people quite quickly. We get emails, we get phone calls, messages. Sometimes people come to us wanting to solve their business problems. Unfortunately, I have to very gently say that one's on you. But we get a lot of people messaging us, asking us for very specific advice, like, I'm having a printing problem. Can you help me figure out how to up my quality? And then we'll say, cool, what are you trying to achieve? Here's a bunch of our people that can help you out. I think it's just always, the worst thing that can happen is you can contact someone and they won't respond. And then that happens to me all the time. But you never know. People will often respond and give you incredible information and help and support. I think it's just about like doing it professionally and respectfully. But yeah, you can always reach us on Instagram or on email. Our little team is super responsive.
Okay. Hopefully you and I think that there on your website as well, the handles, your Instagram handle, of which I'll share post this video. But one last question would be, what can people expect from Artclub and Friends in the not so distant future? Are there any product ranges coming through? Are there anything to look out for?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest privileges of owning your own business or starting your own business is that you have control around changing when it feels like it's time to change. So we've kind of like gotten to a point now where we're selling out of our product quite quickly, and we have to decide whether we want to make more and more and more and more, or if we want to try some new things. So we are at the moment discussing some ideas around some new things we want to try that aren't to do with clothing, but I can't confirm or deny them just yet. But keep an eye out. Hopefully it will be even better than what we're already doing. We're excited to challenge ourselves in a new arena.
Awesome. We look forward to seeing that in the not so distant future. Hopefully, once you morph into something more beautiful, you'll be able to have this chat with us again and just take us through your journey. It's been awesome. Thanks for taking our call, and all the best.
Thank you. Chat soon.
All right. Cheers.